So what happens when a lie, a really malicious one, doesn't just target a person, but aims straight for the heart of an entire community? Today, we're diving into an incredible historical event that gives us this powerful blueprint for how to deal with truth, trust, and keeping it all together when faced with that kind of deception. And that's really the big question we're tackling here. We're not just talking about some simple gossip. This is about what happens when a rumor is a calculated weapon designed specifically to rip a community apart from the inside. All right, so our story actually begins not in the middle of a conflict, but right after one. We're in the aftermath of the expedition against the tribe of Banu Al-Mustaliq, and a moment of resolution is about to completely reshape the whole landscape. This situation could have easily created lasting bitterness, but instead it was flipped into this amazing moment of unity. The victors didn't just dominate, they made a conscious choice to go down a path of compassion, and that one decision would change everything between these two groups. And here is that pivotal moment. Juwayriyah was a daughter of the captured tribe's chief. So by freeing and marrying her, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, completely elevated her status, and by extension, the status of her people. And when his companions saw this, they immediately released their own captives, saying, "How can we hold the in-laws of the Prophet as prisoners?" It was this incredible act of goodwill that turned former enemies into family. So with this new alliance formed, the army starts its journey home. And it's right here, in the middle of the desert, that a seemingly tiny accident is about to set the stage for a crisis that would shake the entire community to its very core. So what happened was, the Prophet's wife, Aishah, had stepped out of her camel litter to look for a necklace she dropped. Her attendants, thinking she was still inside the curtained carrier, lifted it back onto the camel and just set off. She was accidentally left behind, all alone in the dark desert. Eventually, Aishah was found by a companion who was traveling behind the army, and she was brought back safely to the city of Medina. But you'd think that would be the end of it, right? Nope. Her return was actually just the beginning of a whole new ordeal, one fueled by pure malice. There was a man named Abdullah ibn Ubai who was known for publicly saying he was a believer but secretly working to undermine everything, and he saw an opportunity. He took this completely innocent situation and twisted it into a vicious lie about infidelity, targeting the honor of the Prophet's own family. And this didn't just blow over in a day. For an entire month, that lie spread like poison. The city was in absolute turmoil. Aisha fell sick from the grief, her family was in despair, and the Prophet himself was going through this period of profound suffering. And this right here is one of the most important lessons in this entire story. It reminds us that the Prophet, peace be upon him, was human. He didn't have some special access to hidden knowledge. He also had to wait. He had to endure all that uncertainty and rely solely on guidance from God. It's a powerful reminder that divine knowledge is separate, even from the most righteous people. So, after a month of just unbearable tension, the silence was finally broken. The answer came not from any human investigation, but directly from the heavens. And it didn't just provide a verdict, it provided a timeless lesson for every single one of us. Wow. So this verse was revealed in a chapter of the Quran called An-Nur, which means the light. And look at what it does. It doesn't just say Aisha is innocent. It flips the script and challenges the whole community with this incredibly sharp question. Why wasn't your first instinct to think the best and defend the honor of your own people? So the takeaway here is massive. The revelation established a fundamental rule for a healthy society. Your default setting as a believer, something called husn al-dhann, has to be to think well of others and to shut down baseless rumors that attack someone's character right away. Okay, so the truth is out, but the community was wounded and it needed to heal. This next phase was all about setting clear boundaries to protect society from this kind of thing ever happening again, balancing justice with mercy and some really deep wisdom. So the verses of Surah An-Nur didn't just clear Aisha's name, they actually brought new legislation. A clear, serious punishment was put in place for anyone who makes a false accusation of this kind without bringing 4 eyewitnesses to the act itself. I mean, that's an almost impossible standard, and it's designed that way on purpose, to slam the door shut on slander. And that punishment was 80 lashes. Now, that's severe, and it was meant to be. It was a very public deterrent to send a crystal clear message about how destructive and unacceptable this sin is, both in the eyes of God and for the health of a community. But hold on, you might be wondering, What about Abdullah ibn Ubai, the guy who started the whole thing? This is where the wisdom gets really fascinating. He didn't receive the physical punishment. For the believers who got swept up in the rumor, their punishment here on earth was a form of atonement, a way to purify them. But Ibn Ubai, the unrepentant hypocrite who started it all, he deserved no such mercy. His punishment was reserved for the hereafter, which is a far, far more severe outcome. So the law was carried out on 3 people who had actively spread the lie. Missa, who was actually a relative of Aishah's father, Hassan, who was a famous poet, and Himna, another member of the community. And the important part is they all accepted their punishment and they sincerely repented. And this is just beautiful. It shows that perfect balance of justice and mercy. After the punishment, reconciliation followed. Hassan, the poet, used his incredible talent to publicly apologize and restore Aishah's honor, and she accepted it. The community learned, it healed, and it moved on, stronger. But the great lie wasn't the only major trial that happened on this journey, and it wasn't the only source of divine guidance either. The very same expedition that tested the community's social strength also tested their physical limits, which led to another profound lesson in mercy. So at another stop, the army realized they had absolutely no water for wudu, the ritual washing you do before prayer. And it was right at that moment that a verse was revealed allowing for tayammum, or dry ablution. This incredibly practical ruling allowed them to use clean earth to prepare themselves for prayer. So what does this teach us? It shows that the connection to God through prayer is so vital that a merciful allowance is made even when you're in the harshest conditions. Think about it. On one journey, you have guidance for a social crisis of slander and guidance for a physical crisis of thirst. It's all about ensuring the health of the community, both spiritually and socially. And that brings us right to our final thought. The technology has changed, for sure, but human nature really hasn't. The great lies spread by word of mouth back then. Today, lies spread across the globe in seconds. So the lesson from over 1,400 years ago is more critical than ever. In a world that seems to thrive on instant judgment and suspicion, how do we actively, consciously choose to make our first instinct one of trust and kindness?